Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland, and here I am on Finch Hatton Bridge at Eton, and you can maybe make out the legend which is inscribed there. Dennis Finch Hatton, 1900 to 1906, and then on the other side saying, famous in these fields and by his many friends greatly beloved. So Finch Hatton, he was born in Kensington, London in 1886. His father was the Earl of Winchelsea. His ancestor had famously fought a duel against the Duke of Wellington, and his maternal grandfather was an admiral. So he came from a very wealthy and well-connected family. He wasn't the eldest brother, so he wasn't in line to inherit the title. So he came to Eton, and he was perhaps the most multi-talented sportsman Eton's ever had. So he was captain of the cricket 11, and then upper club is just over there. That's where the cricket first 11 used to play, or still play. He was also keeper of the field game. The field game is this unique form of football played at Eton, with a bully, kind of like a scrum, and they're not allowed to pass backwards. Difficult to describe. I was absolutely rubbish at it, 2 left feet. If you saw that thing about that drama about Eton playing against some football club of the 19th century earlier this year, that'll give you an idea of what it was like. So this is upper club. You can see the sight screens for cricket, and he was keeper of the wall game. The wall game's like a scrum beside a wall for an hour. And what else? He was secretary of the Music Society, so he was musically gifted. So he was an outstanding all-rounder. He was elected to POP. POP is probably called the Eton Society, but everybody calls it POP, which is like the prefect. So the outgoing year, they elect the incoming POP, who, like Eton's traffic police, controlling who can go where and things like that. And you had disciplinary control over the boys, could beat other boys and stuff. It's not like that anymore. So he was very well regarded by his peers, a sports hero. And just imagine the many triumphs he would have had here on these games fields and others. So that is irrecoverable as Lyonnais, but his fame is still there, etched in stone, almost a century after his death. Anyway, then went to Brasenose College, Oxford. Going to Oxford was not difficult if you went to Eton in those days. I mean, I wouldn't say it was easy either. So long as you're an average pupil, that was fine. You had a good grounding in classics. He went up there, and I don't think he set the world ablaze scholastically. Then after graduation, he went on a prolonged tour of Africa to South Africa, Kenya, and Uganda, all British colonies at the time. So had pots of family money, purchasing some land in Kenya, or then called British East Africa, and he got into big game hunting. So he liked his safaris. The First World War came along, and he was in the army. He was posted to Egypt. I don't think he ever saw combat, but when he's in Kenya, he got to know Isaac Dinson, or Karen Blixen, to give her real name, this Danish baroness who was there, married to her Swedish second cousin, and they were childless. So their marriage broke up due to the husband's infidelity. So she started having a long-term affair with Finch Hatton, and the husband was more or less a willing cuckold. Their marriage was effectively at an end. They didn't divorce till 1925 because divorce was still something of a social no-no. She's a bit of a black sheep in Kenyan high society. There was a colour bar back then, so white people and black people, or whites and Indians, scarcely socialised. Anyway, so then he had a long-term romantic relationship with Beryl Markham, that famous aviatrix, one of the first women to fly, who was a horse breeder and horse trainer in Kenya at the time. So famously author of West with a Knight. I think she was the first one to fly across the Atlantic, if I got that right. Anyway, so you can see his family coat of arms here. There's griffin, and the more griffins on it on either side. So I used to go across this bridge almost every day as a schoolboy and read this about them, and they did seem to be splendid words. Famous in these fields and by his friends greatly beloved, or should it be accentuated, beloved. So quite touching. Lost youth. He too was young, and he was involved in all these tussles on these fields. He achieved glory here, and obviously now he's one with eternity. So he was a close friend of the then Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VIII. Used to go safari hunting with him and think that it made it too easy going out in cars to hunt big game, so they ought to go out on horseback or just walk. And it was the first to sense that conservation needed to come in. After decades of hunting with cars, with these long-range rifles, it was just unsporting, and the number of game were decimated. So they needed to be preserved, the habitat as well as the beasts themselves, otherwise they'd be wiped out. And of course, these were prophetic words, because a few decades hence, and some of these species were on the brink of extinction. So he was also a daring aviator, and used to like to take people up to watch the animals from up high. You may have seen that film Out of Africa, came out about 1984, with Meryl Streep playing Isaac Dinson or Karen Blixen, to give her real name, and she puts on that Danish accent, dyed her hair chestnut coloured for once. But it was Robert Redford, the American actor. He portrayed Dennis Finch Hatton, but Redford couldn't quite get the British received pronunciation accent, so then he portrayed him as an American. His nationality was completely unimportant to the storyline, but apparently there's some things they forgot to edit out, where it does come across in more of a Britannic accent. And you can see these marvelous sequences, absolutely exquisite, flying over Kenya and seeing vast herds of various animals, wildebeest, zebras and all the rest of it, some shots of lions. So Dennis Finch Hatton, he took off in his plane in 1931 over Voi, and for some reason his plane crashed and he died. I believe he's buried there in Kenya. So that is Dennis Finch Hatton. He was a very good-looking man with these sort of matinee idol looks, and he's from that era of like Rudolph Valentino and so on. So that is just a little bit about Dennis Finch Hatton and the bridge which bears his name to memorialise him forever. But sadly, hundreds of boys pass over this bridge every single day and don't give him a second thought. And he was their age once. It's something about me that I'm always trying to recapture lost youth and remember that and escape mortality, and think that somehow he's achieved that by this stone which has his name etched on it. Thank you so much for watching. So please make sure you subscribe. Toodaloo.